Good evening, and this is now week 7 of Social Work 633. We've reached that halfway point. So, this week the focus is on trauma. Given the incidence of adverse childhood experiences, trauma integrated approaches to family therapy are essential to helping families address both current and long standing problems. The objectives for this week are to identify how trauma presents in families and to identify principles for integrating a trauma lens into family work. There are a number of activities and resources for this week. So you can see the various articles, and you are asked to look at these two additional articles, choose one of them, but download them all for future references. Resources include looking at complex trauma in urban African American children, youth, and families, culture and trauma brief, trauma among lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or questioning youth, preliminary adaptations for working with traumatized Latino, Hispanic children and their families, and trauma and families, a fact sheet for providers. There is a website for the National Child Traumatic Stress Network and a podcast and video for this week. The discussion post is as follows, and it's around integrating a trauma lens into family work. So after specifically reading the James and McKinnon article in this week's Learning Resources, please list at least 2 of the principles that resonated the most with you and that you believe will be the easiest for you to recall as you move forward in doing family work with your clients. Explain why you chose these principles and how you will use them in your work with clients. In this one, you're encouraged to respond to your peers, but you are not required to do so. This activity is due on Thursday. There is a written assignment this week, and that is your family of origin theory paper. And just to take a brief look at the requirements for that paper. So the family of origin paper components are that first you are to select one model of family therapy, structural, Bowenian, communication, contextual, etc., and apply that model to your family of origin, including all of the following components. And the suggestion is to use headings so you don't forget a component. So you have the problem description. So before you apply a theory to explain the causes of the problem, first describe the problem in your own words. The hypothesis, using the concepts of one family theory that we studied, describe the family dynamics, including any patterns that may have contributed or caused the problem in your family. What is your hypothesis about the causes of the issue or problem in your family, and according to the model you have chosen? Social cultural factors, family strengths, the family life cycle stage that you believe the family was in when the problem appeared or got worse, and then your reflection on the process. And the rubric is here. You are also going to be attaching your family of origin genogram, and so those components are here as well. To talk a little bit about actually, before I go into talking a little bit more about trauma, I want to make you aware and remind you that this is the point in the course that you can give feedback on the course and what has happened to date. So there's a mid-semester evaluation. I encourage you to fill out that evaluation form. There are some things I have control over and others that I may not, but I will be happy to take your feedback and provide it to others as need be, and or incorporate your feedback going forward into the course. So please take a moment to fill out that evaluation. There's also this week a self-care activity. So this is an opportunity for you to engage in self-care. And so this one is called No More Excuses, Meditate Now. To talk a little bit about trauma, I'm going to bring up a portion of a PowerPoint that I completed for training purposes for social workers and counselors who were doing work in Kenya at an all-girls school where the young women live on campus. And what they found was that although they were providing all the basic physical needs of the individual students and their educational needs, and even in many cases working with their families, they were finding that the grades for these young women who are admitted to the school because they are very bright, they thought the grades would be much better. And what they came to realize or wanted more help with was dealing with those things that happened to these young women before they came to the school, the trauma that they experience often when they go back home during breaks, and that issues that impact their families across many generations, and how that trauma was impacting their grades and their ability to function, even though in many respects they were being provided a much better environmental experience than many of their peers. So, when talking to the social workers and counselors, we first talked about what is trauma. An individual trauma results from an event, series of events, or set of circumstances that is experienced by an individual as physically or emotionally harmful or life-threatening, and that has lasting effects on the individual's functioning and mental, physical, social, emotional, or spiritual well-being. And this is a SAMHSA definition. Traumatic events are those that cause overwhelming anxiety or distress and include experiencing, witnessing, or being confronted with physical, verbal, and emotional abuse, or another event that involves actual or threatened death or serious injury to oneself or someone else. Trauma exposure is a common occurrence among adolescents. And in this case, I gave statistics on the occurrence in Kenya, which is deemed to be about 46%, but we know that's probably an underreported figure. So there are psychological responses. When exposed to dangerous or threatening situations, the mental mechanisms that help us make everyday decisions can temporarily shut down. This response enables us to make more primitive responses and take quick action rather than to think carefully about the situation at hand. While these responses are important and vital for survival, prolonged exposure to these kinds of situations where a protective response is inhibited can result in lasting physical and emotional problems. Psychological responses to trauma include intense fear, helplessness, or in severe cases, absolute horror. Those physical responses occur when fight, flight, or freeze reactions are set in motion. The body prepares to respond to threat by sending more resources to vital organs and conserving resources in others. So, what are some additional physical responses? Heart pounding, nausea, knot in the stomach, dry mouth and throat, feeling detached from self or surroundings, feeling frozen or immobile, difficulty swallowing, sweating, clammy feeling, cold hands, blurred vision, light seems brighter, feeling spaced out or in another world. What are some of the risk factors for trauma? Well, in terms of family characteristics, and this is specific to youth, is more common among youth whose families are characterized by relationship problems and parental psychopathology. This same study that was cited found that a family history of mental illness doubles the risk of trauma exposure. And a closer look at gender differences revealed that girls were at greater risk if either parent had a criminal record or if the home was poor or disorganized. Stressful events. Experiencing stressful events such as parental separation or divorce, moving or changing schools, or breaking up with a friend has been associated with increased risk for trauma. Adolescents who have experienced high levels of stress in the context of exposure to violence are at greater risk for poor psychological outcomes. So, what are some treatment options? Trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy is one, which has been proven effective. This resolves a variety of emotional and behavioral challenges resulting from the trauma. Some steps in trauma-focused CBT include psychoeducation of the trauma symptoms, relaxation skills, affect regulation, cognitive coping, learning how our thoughts affect our feelings and behaviors, trauma narrative. A detailed story is told about the child or adolescent's traumatic events. In vivo exposure, the clinician will expose the child to address any significant trauma triggers during intervention time. Conjoint sessions with the caregiver or the parent and enhancing safety. DBT, or dialectical behavioral therapy, is another approach to dealing with trauma. And this includes things like mindfulness and non-judgmental thoughts, interpersonal effectiveness of managing relationships, distress tolerance to learn how to tolerate distress, and emotional regulation. So, in conclusion, adolescents exposed to traumatic experiences can still lead positive, successful lives. Trauma does not have to define who they are. They need to know that they are not alone, and a listening ear and an open heart can help with overcoming traumatic experiences. And these are a few references, including the National Child Traumatic Stress Network, which is listed in our resources for this week. They also have a toolkit for educators and information on understanding traumatic stress in adolescents. So you have a number of assignments for this week. I look forward to reading those assignments, and if you have any questions, please email me as soon as possible, and I will respond to those questions. Have a wonderful week.